What's happening, Renegade Nation? Want to just give you a quick heads up is that there really what it comes down to is two things. Is just number one, Skya is in the background, and you're going to see her just going to spin circles. It's a long story. I won't go into that. And then she barks at a certain point. I forgot what time marker. So just know you're going to hear Skya and you're going to see Skya, and then you're probably going to think, "Oh, show me more Skya." That won't happen, but just know that she's going to be barking. Number two is this is the second part with Coach Cole Fritz, and we do want to make sure that you listen to the first part because we do make reference to the interview in part one. So I want to make sure that you guys jump on that. Other than that, that's it. Just want to hop on and say thank you so much for checking out Renegade Radio. Thank you so much for taking the time and especially for listening into Coach Cole Fritz's story. And please subscribe if you guys are enjoying things from Renegade Radio. Without further ado, here we go. Let's get right back into the show. This is Renegade Radio, Season 2, Episode 011 with Coach Cole Fritz. All right, guys, welcome back. Part 2 of Coach Cole Fritz's interview. We had a great conversation before, and so we're going to pick right back up to continue his story because, as you guys heard, I mean, just something really amazing. Cole, thanks for jumping back on with us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And it sounds like decent response from the first part, right? Like, what have people been saying about your testimony?
So far they said it's pretty powerful. And brave for saying it. But I was like, I've been telling people so much anyway. Like the last, gosh, what was that 2009? So however many years that's been. So I've been sharing it, learned how to share it, and like I've been more in detail with the last time, and on this podcast sharing. But then also I'm working on a book, so that's like I'm trying to articulate better, so that way, like this story can help someone else, that's going through the same experience that I did. So,
Has there been anybody who doesn't really know you all that well, or may even know you or has known you for a while, but this is the first time that they've
yeah,
heard your story?
yeah, there's a
Oh,
lot of people.
yeah.
So,
What have they thought about it?
they're like, "Oh my god, I didn't know." I was like, "Yeah, especially when you're a younger guy, you just don't know how to share stuff like that, and you feel embarrassed, but it's like you shouldn't feel embarrassed with this stuff because it's the amount of mental stuff people go through nowadays. It's not uncommon. Where back in the day, it's probably have the same amount, if not more, but people just didn't understand how to share things. So
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. All right. Well, for today's conversation, dude, what I'm looking at, what I'd like to do is I want to dig more into the fitness side. I definitely want to talk
yeah,
more about peptides, and
okay.
see if we can even get into a heated argument because I think that'd be kind of fun.
I
and
I'm
then,
game, man. I'm game.
and then just obviously wherever the conversation goes, and just even and we're recording this on Easter weekend, and
Yes, Good
and so
Friday, baby.
we'll talk a little bit more on the faith side. Before we get more into the faith side, let's pick back up into not
Mhm.
picking back up, but let's get into the fitness side a little bit. So now, and for those of you, if you just happen to pick up on this episode, this is your first one, and you have not heard Cole's story beforehand, I will highly recommend you go listen to that first because otherwise you're going to get
Mhm.
lost in maybe some of the stuff that we talk
Yeah,
about.
lost in the weeds. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll make sure I'll link up the first episode or the first part
Yeah.
of this conversation. So let's get into your fitness deal, right? So you've become a personal trainer,
hmm
and now and so you're training people. Walk us through your now essentially it's now a separate journey of you training people. What has training been like? What have you
Yeah.
learned? What are some of the things that were like you thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this?
Yeah.
All the myths, all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh god. So I started in 2014. My first cert was 2009. So like I was like training people for free from like then until about 2014. But
Who'd you go
I
through,
went to
Nazin?
no. So it's funny. So 24
You
Hour
said you got, like, the
Fitness.
Kroger version or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's called Nesta, Nesta.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, no, I don't even know if they exist anymore. So basically, they took the NASM model and just flipped some stuff around, changed some words, and it's cheaper. So I had a 2-day course I went through with 24 Hour Fitness, did that. And then, so I had the Nesta cert, and then I had the USAW cert level 1. So that was my first cert, was USA level 1, USAW level 1, which is the Olympic weightlifting cert. So, and that's why I didn't get the NASM, because I was like, well, I have this one, and it's not going to give me more money. Especially when you're corporate, they'll say they'll pay you more, but they never do. Um, and so,
True.
yeah, yeah. So literally before I was getting certified for NASM, then they're like, oh yeah, whatever. And then that's when I went independent. But yeah, so initially when I started out training, all of the stuff I knew was just like, hey, I know how to lift, and I have some ideas on, like, for whatever reason, I have a, my gift is I can see how people move and how we can make it better. I don't know why, I don't know where I picked this up, and I'm just good at it. And so I was just, he still comes to this gym now. So we're talking, what is that, 12 years later. One of my clients, he was my first client at 24. He's followed me pretty much all over town.
Wow.
And yeah, and all I did was I asked him, I was like, hey man, can I take you through a session? Something that was nice. I apparently I let him work in with me on a set or something. And it was just, just talking to him. It's like, hey, you want to work out sometime? And yeah, here we are. So I at that 24 Hour Fitness, it was more of a PT style. So because we had an older generation, all the
Right.
trainers, they were more like, one guy's a physical therapist now, the other guy's a chiro. So it's one of those, we just have more of a specialty niche there. And so I really learned how to do corrective exercise and for like preventative stuff there. And then 2015, when I went independent, really got into the more sciencey based bodybuilding stuff. And so this was before all the science based crap that's out there the last couple of years. It was like Ben Pakulski, who was muscle intelligence, and then hypertrophy coach Joe Bennett. Joe Bennett has probably been my biggest mentor in the space of actually like talking with him, spending multiple days with him, over the last, was that 11 years now?
Mhm.
And I have a couple of his certs too. And it's just learning how to lift better for hypertrophy in ways that, like, again, it's not saying that my stuff's the best. It's more just saying, how do we help someone move better and do better things without putting in positions like, cause like you'll see a lot of trainers like, oh, go do this. And clients like, oh, my knee hurts. Well, okay, well, your knee hurts because you shouldn't probably be in a certain position on a squat or a leg press. It's being better at seeing things that can help your client get better results without pain. And then I finally met John Meadows, Mila Sarcev, Juan Silos Carlos, uh, so JC Simos, and Charles Poliquin at Poliquin's gym in 2018 or 17. I can't remember. So it was literally 2 weeks before Charles Poliquin died. So like he literally opened up his gym and then 2 weeks later he died. So
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I was there. Oh, and Stan Efferding was at this seminar. So I spent all those days lifting with the best bodybuilders, learning from the best bodybuilders in the world that are coaches. Mila Starcev has beat Ronnie Coleman before Ronnie Coleman became the Ronnie Coleman. So like, Milos has probably some of the best protocols in the pro side of bodybuilding when it comes to like the drug side. Yeah. So, and then John Meadows, if you don't know who John Meadows is, just type him in. He's probably the smartest guy when it came to like mixing studies, but also mixing application of training modalities and nutrition, all that stuff. And it was just this some of the coolest stuff I've ever had. So that was my education start. And then the more I got in with Joe Bennett, he eventually spouted off Tom Purvis. Tom Purvis owns RTS, which is resistance training specialist. And I've been going to stuff with them since 21 or 2020. And then I got working on my certification for RTS Mastery, which is, you have like level 1000 up to 5000 courses in the videos. I don't know how many hours. I think we're at like 80 or 60 or 80 hours of video. Like it's a lot of crap. Um,
Let
and
me hold
then
on, Cole,
yeah.
real quick. What I'm curious about is what
Mhm.
got you into bodybuilding? Like, you touched on it in the first
Oh yeah,
part,
yeah.
but what is it that drew you to this?
So I think kind of like any kid, like growing up in the '90s and like 2000s, Arnold Schwarzenegger was really big, and my buddy had a Arnold Schwarzenegger's bodybuilding encyclopedia, and I was like, oh, I want to look like that because like I knew Arnold was tall, and I was like, oh, okay, well if I can just do what they do, I'll get like that, and that's kind of what drew me into bodybuilding.
Mhm.
And the more I got into the bodybuilding, the more I realized most of those guys are like 5'3" to 5'8",
Yeah, they're a
and
lot shorter.
and the 5'8" guys are short. So I was like, okay, well this is gonna be rough. And so I actually did my first bodybuilding show in 2017. And I did all right, like a first time ever true novice. I got first place there, but then I did like novice and some other ones, and I got beat by a guy that was technically uh, he's he was already on the um the national circuit. He just came to Colorado to requalify so he could go and get his card or whatever. So
Mm.
got beat by him, which is fine because like he's the best looking one there. But yeah, I did that in 2017. I haven't touched bodybuilding in a while. I was prepping in 2020 to get ready to do a show again, but COVID happened. And then I had my life stuff happen with the ex girlfriend and house and not having a job and all that from COVID. And that's when I got fat and I was like, I just don't care anymore. And since we gotten back, I've just, dealing with the injuries. I torn both my pecs. And just with the mental health side, it's taken me forever. So now we're finally back in a place where I'm able to get into a position where I want to bodybuild again and, possibly see what I can do with it, regardless if competing happens. I don't care. It's more of like, what can I do for myself and see what I can do with myself.
Let
And,
me
yeah.
if I can, Cole, because I think this is
Mhm.
actually a really good opportunity to be able to share this. So for the audience, for most of you guys know that, I run Renegade Training. I have, my own personal training deal. Coach Cole,
Mhm.
also personal trainer, but both him and I do very different training styles.
Yes.
The For you, Cole, I think this will be a great opportunity for you to
Yeah.
be able to differentiate between bodybuilding and
Mhm.
strength training, because
Yeah.
from a female side, that
Mhm.
myth that still goes around of, if I pick up a dumbbell, I'm getting bulky,
Yeah.
and and obviously that's not true.
Yep.
But and then bodybuilding is a very specific way of being able to lift weights
Mhm.
with the
Mhm.
reps and set counts and
Mhm.
whatnot. Can you go ahead and help dispel
Yeah.
myths and tell us what the
Yeah.
differences are?
Yeah, yeah. So the easiest way to be like, so what, if, ladies, if you're listening, if you're like, oh my gosh, I'll get bulky if I lift, you won't. You literally don't have the equipment inside of you to do that. That is, testes. Um, Now some girls are more prone to have muscle put on, and vice versa. So if you look at like a gymnast or something, those girls are more prone to put muscle on, versus like say girls that are used to run. But the difference between let's say basic strength training and basic hypertrophy is how we stimulate the muscles to create an end result. So the end result for hypertrophy muscle building is to make your movements as inefficient for the muscle as possible. So the muscle has to work the hardest in order to create the most output. And as a result, the muscle is forced to have to get better, um, and grow. And then you just repeat that process over and over from recovery, food, and stimulus. And as a result, something should grow. Um, where strength is you're trying to go from A to B as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible, and using all your muscles to go from A to B. So, like the difference between a deadlift and RDL would be a good example. Deadlifts are technically going to make you as big as an RDL would, but yeah, those would be my two comparisons. Or like everyone knows how to do a bicep curl. Well, there's better ways to do a bicep curl. We're not going to try to do a bicep curl for like 100 pounds on a single one arm rep.
What a monster if you do that.
No. Well, I did 80s today on hammer curls, so I could have done more, but we'll
What a
talk about that
monster.
later. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so the overall arching thing is it comes to the intent of what we're trying to do on the muscle for hypertrophy to build, and then it's a process of just wax on, wax off, where you're repeating these things day in and day out for months on end to try to grow.
Mm,
Those are going to be that's the best sequence. People who tell you otherwise, like, oh, you got to change up every month. That's incorrect. You basically just beat the things that you're doing well with and that your body likes, beat that into the ground until it doesn't work. And then when it doesn't work, that's where you slightly change the thing. So that could be going from dumbbell overhead press to a machine overhead press, or the machine overhead press back to a dumbbell or back to a barbell. Just changing things up just enough so that way it's the stimulus is still novel or new. And the nuance on that's more of the art side of things versus the science. And
yeah.
that takes time to learn. And that's where I come in, is because I know how to do that stuff versus you see people do like you see people that they look the same. I know people that I've known for 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, they look the same year over year because they don't know how to stimulate their muscles.
Right.
And it's not that
Exactly.
they're doing any exercise is bad. They're just not doing things right.
Right. Exactly.
So
So chasing of adaptation is what we're always after. So that's the
yeah.
so for my clients and for audience members that are listening, now you know it's not just me who's saying it. This is also coming from this is Coach Cole, another trainer who's been in the industry for a while. So
Yeah.
hopefully that is valuable, excuse me, and beneficial for you guys. Cole, I want to shift gears a little bit,
Hmm.
still within the fitness realm, and let's actually touch more. I'm going to put both of these into this category, GLPs and
Okay.
peptides. And we
Okay.
talked about this a little bit at the gym. And my overarching deal, and I want to hear why you getting into peptides and what you've seen with some of your clients, because I know
Hmm.
you've already started sharing it with some
Yeah.
of your clients. So my with GLPs, I believe that my belief is that I don't think we should have ever gotten to this point as a country or society. Like, this
100%
drug
agree.
technically should just not even be and now I just heard that I guess Wegovy has a pill. So now the GLP, like, it's a lower barrier to entry, so you don't have to inject it. You just pop a
Yeah.
pill.
Yep.
Um, Now peptides, I kinda go back and forth a little bit just because there are some massive benefits to it. My hindrance to it is that it's almost it's another shortcut type of thing, where if we have not been able to develop the habits that we know as
Hmm.
coaches that,
Hmm.
clients need,
Yep.
then I don't think peptides are gonna be, because otherwise we're chasing the what, meaning the what is gonna get me to the goal quickest kinda
Correct.
deal.
Correct.
And so I've actually come to a conclusion today, actually about a couple of hours ago, that I think what I would like to see happen is that there needs to be some sort of gatekeeper. There needs to be some way of being able to determine, like, yes, this is actually going to medically be able to help you out for the long
Hmm.
term. And then possibly even like you may be a good candidate for the supplemental stuff for muscle growth,
Yep.
for hormonal stuff, balance or whatever.
Yeah.
What are your takes on these between GLPs
Yeah.
and peptides, and why you got into peptides?
Yeah. 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 So this is important because I will say I will be a gatekeeper 100% with this stuff because like I heard about GLPs 3, 4 years ago.
Hmm.
Being in bodybuilding, I've known about so much other stuff with steroids and all these
Oh,
other
I'm
things
sure.
for hormones, and it's there. So like I've known about stuff before other people have talked about stuff. But then it comes to the question of what's safe, what's that, like who should take it and how long should you take it? And, is it even worth taking? Because like it could shorten your lifespan or, there's so many different variables.
Yeah.
And, like when SARMs came out, selective androgen receptor molecules, I was like, I studied them. I looked at them. I tried a couple during prep and I was like, I didn't see any difference, because I got them for cheap.
Mm.
Cause I worked at a supplement store. But the more I researched them, the more I told people, I was like, yeah, you're stupid if you do this, like literally stupid. And now the people are supporting that. Like there are some that work, but like for the majority, it's just done. If you're gonna do anything that you want to enhance your body, just do steroids, do your testosterone therapy, inject. It's better. efficacy wise and all the other stuff. But then when we look at GLPs, I had a client, I was training her, and she was taking the tirzepatide, which I didn't know the difference between the GLP-1, GLP-2, and GLP-3. They're the tool is great. The reason I feel they're good for people, because I'll tell my story too, is some people just need that little bit of help to assist
Yeah,
on
I
the
agree.
brain side. But I had a client, female client, who lost 30 pounds in 8 weeks
Oh, oh,
without GLPs. So we did work, and we lost over a total of 100 pounds within a year, less than a year,
wow.
without GLPs. She did the work. Like, it was work. And I know how to, do all the nutrition for that. I know how to do all that stuff. But when you have something that tells you outside of your brain, hey, like, turn off the food noise, if people aren't familiar with what that is, it's just literally you're always thinking about food, even though you're not thinking about food. And like, you get, like, for me, I would get done eating, I'd be full, and I'd still be thinking about food.
You'd make a good Korean. I'm just gonna say that as a side note.
Well, that's why I hang out with all the Korean guys.
That's exactly why you hang out with the
Yeah,
Korean guy.
because you guys take me all the food, good food. Uh, but yeah, so for me, I use the GLP-3, retatrutide, and I lost 55 pounds on.
Wow.
Now, so the reason I didn't use the other ones, I was like, I saw that, the muscle loss, the hair loss, the strength loss, all that stuff, the negative things I don't want as if someone who wants to build muscle, keep muscle, and look a certain way. I was like, I'm not going to touch anything until there's something that helps with muscle loss prevention. And it
Right.
just turns out, and I just wanted to have my brain turn off from wanting to think about food all the time. So when I found out about retatrutide, and it was through another guy he sells peptides, and I was like, okay, well, he's a seller, so let's listen to what he has to say and see if I can figure out if something like that is viable for me, my lifestyle. And what he said is like, yeah, it turns off the food noise. It actually helps with your A1C, which that just
Oh,
means is your better insulin regulation. So the more insulin sensitivity you have in your body, the more muscle you can put on, and all this stuff. So I was like, ooh, I'm sold on that. They also have possible stuff where it's anti-tumor, and all these other things. And so I was like, cool, this sounds pretty cool. So I tried that. I lost 55 pounds. My food noise is gone. Like, I've been off for a week now. And that's usually when, like, some people are like, oh no, I've been thinking about food all the time. And it's like, I can think about food again, but I don't obsess over it.
hmm,
And then there's even days where, like, I still forget to eat. And it's not because, like, the GLP not to eat, but it's just literally like I don't think about food in a way where it's the response system with the dopamine. So
interesting.
that that's that's where I got into it. And then the reason I got into the actual, like, selling and supporting people with peptides is other companies are doing it. Well, wellness companies are doing it. And these are people that don't know anything about nutrition. People that don't know anything about weight training. They don't know anything. Now that's a blanket statement, but majority of people I've seen with it and how they talk about it, like with people who are clients or have used this stuff, these people don't know what the hell they're doing. And so this is why you're having people with the hair loss and the bone degradation, is because you're having these guys recommend, oh, hey, I want you to get on this GLP. You're going to get to the maximum dose within a month. And then these people can't eat because that stuff turns off that signaling. And then that's why there's all these issues happening, is because these doctors don't know what the hell they're doing. And these, wellness people are just prescribing things to make money.
So how do you go about now, I'm really appreciative,
Yeah.
and for the
Yeah. Yeah.
audience, this is the first time I'm hearing Cole's full opinion
Yeah.
on
Hmm.
all of this. I'm really appreciative of the fact that you're willing to step in as a gatekeeper, because
Yeah.
because I really do. I am starting to firmly believe like that is the way that the peptide industry needs to go.
Yes.
Now, whether that looks like eventually, whether the FDA gets involved or government gets involved somehow to be able
Yeah.
to regulate, I don't know, but good
Yeah.
trainers, good people who understand that,
Hmm.
there needs to be some kind of
Yeah.
stemming of the flow, not just a,
Yeah.
pump your body full of this and,
Hmm.
snake oil, miracle drug,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that the testing comes through blood labs. So that's why like I'm sitting in the clinic right now that we're building out. So we can test your blood labs, and certain markers that we're looking for will dictate whether you can get on something because it's safe, or whether you should add something because you're deficient in an area or whatnot. So I have DNA testing through a company that I'm partnering with, and this DNA test comes back and tells us, okay, you're deficient in this, you're deficient in this, blah blah blah, and at the end of it, it tells us, okay, this is how you need to eat, and these are the peptides that are going to support that. Now, if someone needs to use those, that's up to them, but it allows me to make a more educated decision on my recommendation for a peptide. So, like, let's say we'll just stick with the GLPs because there's just so many other peptides out there where it's most people shouldn't be using.
Hmm.
But like, everyone's like, well, should I use the GLP-1, GLP-2, or GLP-3? I would not. I will never recommend a GLP-3, GLP-1 to anybody. That I just think that's disadvantageous to people who want to lose weight, but also like because you need to be able to eat, you need to be able to eat protein, you need to be able to digest that. But also, since it's only hitting that not being able to eat marker, like it's just not doing anything, and it's super powerful. So where the GLP-2 is, it can help with people's A1C and other stuff. So that's a good option because since technically the GLP-3 is not FDA approved yet, um, you're technically not supposed to be able to have access to it. But people who have access to it are seeing better results. It's better for people who have muscle, want to put muscle on, maintain their muscle, still change their A1C, have because it hits glucagon now instead of GLP, the GLP and the
Oh,
GIP.
interesting. I didn't know that.
And so, yeah, and then, yeah, so my A1C went from like, I was like pre-diabetic down to like a 5.4, which is, it's not great. Like, I'd rather be in the fours, which we're going to actually test today after I get done with this, see where I'm at.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, and it's just the more and more stuff comes out, they're going to make things better and better and safer, I feel. There's one coming out later this year with a different company, excuse me, and it's going to be a GLP-3, but better. And the reason it's better because it's not going to actually affect the stomach. It's just brain stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be super, super
yeah,
useful.
yeah. But then the question is that going to affect dopamine too much, or is it going to turn like? There's so many variables. So that's where I look at recommendation is what's the lowest amount of dose that we can use that's safe, right? That we see in studies or what we've heard people use, and how long do we stay on it? So it's one of those get in, get out with GLPs. Same with other things. Most things that we're seeing is 4 to 8 weeks being on, and then 4 to 8 weeks off, and using it as cycle as that. When I tore my pec, I tore this whole thing from here up.
Cool.
I used a month's worth of TB 500 and BBC 157 in a week.
Hmm.
And I went from like I can even flex my pec to I can flex it now. I can move. I can bench press. And everyone's like, "Well, was that going to happen anyway?" I was like, "No. Like when you tear something, you tear something."
Oh, yeah, you'll
And
feel
and
it.
yeah, and it's one of those. If I would have had more money, then I would have done 3 months in the span of like 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and I think I would have had 100% healing with that.
Hmm.
And because peptides are look at for people to remember how peptides work, think of the light dimmer switch you have on your house. You have to push the button and it's already turned down. As we get older, those signals are just turned down. So when you take a peptide, it turns it back up. And then when it comes out, it goes back down to wherever your body decides to turn it back down to. So it's not like testosterone where you inject it and it replaces your natural production. This is just telling the signal to turn up and then it comes back down once you take it out.
So, with all of that in mind, thank you
Mhm,
for explaining that too, because I think
mhm.
for audience members who are just now hearing about peptides, I think that's gonna be super
Yeah,
useful, especially in a very I think that's a great description too.
yeah.
Um,
And
and also
and yeah, I was gonna say,
go
and
ahead.
peptides, they're a naturally occurring thing in the body, so it's an
Oh,
amino
that's
acid.
exactly what I
Amino
was about to
acid is,
say.
yeah, amino acid is something that's in the body that comes from protein. So basically, when you really break that down, think a steak is the complete Lego set. The amino acids individually are the individual pieces of that Lego set that make up that full steak or that full Lego piece set. So think about amino acids as the individual pieces.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for adding that. That's exactly what I was gonna, add in. What I wanna ask now, um,
Mhm.
because people might be listening in on this, and then they're maybe processing, "Oh, well, does that mean I need to go on peptides, or should I be using peptides?" So if you don't mind, explain who would be
Oof.
what are the
Yeah.
candidates, or who are the candidates
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
used get
Yeah.
oh, there we go.
Yeah. There we go. Um, so for who I've been partnering with to, if they're like, hey, I want to do peptides, I'm like, hey, what's the goal? If you can't articulate a goal to me, I'm gonna be like, no, I don't want to. I'm not gonna work with you
That's really good.
because and it's just because again, it's you need to do as an individual do your own research, right?
Yeah,
However, when you're partnering with someone who understands the stuff more than you, then it allows us to make sure that we're sending you in the direction you want. So like if I have someone who's like, we want to build muscle, we want to feel better, we want to have longevity, all those things, then we're like, cool, I can guide you with like, okay, we can use this peptide, or this peptide, or we could just use this one peptide and it can hit all three of those things, just in a different mechanism. And I feel this again, this is an opinion. It's not a everyone's gonna be different. If you want to use peptides, you need to be in shape first, like in good shape, and then good shape, and then outside of the good shape, then we'll look at uh, what type of shape you're in internally, and that's why we do the blood test, and that dictates what we do. So, like for me, I got on one peptide where everyone's like, "Oh, you should be able to get on this when you're fat," and I'm like, "No, man, I'm using the GLP-3 to be a synergist with this." And as a result, actually sped up my fat loss and it made things better because it actually helps sending glucose into the muscle versus the glucose staying in and going to the liver. So this is my thought. And now what I'm seeing with all the other big pros who are using stuff for their bodybuilders and all this other stuff, they're actually like, yeah, you know what? That's the peptide you should be using if you want to do this in conjunction with that. And I was like, oh, sweet. I guessed right. And again, and it's one of those like if you understand how the actions of the body works,
yeah.
like so because it's Krebs cycle stuff in the interaction with all this other stuff, you just need to know enough to where like this might work, this might not work, and then for me, I'll experiment on myself. I don't care, because like stuff's not going to kill you, and as a result, I got good results with it. Now, on with that peptide, people who were prescribing it are like, hey, you're going to take 5 mg's of this at the beginning of the week and 5 at the end. Okay, well, someone's like, yeah, I did that and I had a cardiac, um, heart skip, whatever it's called, and it's like, okay, that sounds really effing high. Excuse my language, but that's really high on the dosing. So I was like, let's go see if I can find better dosing. And everyone's like, oh yeah, you don't do 5 and 1, you do 1 over your 5 days of lifting. So
There you go.
again, and this is well, this shows you what these guys that are supposed to know stuff, who are doctors and providers, they don't know anything about this stuff.
Yeah.
So and that's the thing, and that's why I tell people I'm more of a bro than I am on the science side because all the bro stuff generally comes from they see stuff in science, then they apply what they see in science and they adjust it around and see how it works and whatnot, and then they create these protocols out of that, and that's how they do stuff. Where the problem with science, it's usually 5 or 10 years behind because that's how long it takes to study and do all these studies and the cost of it. So it's
Yeah.
again, it's not that science is bad. It's just
It's just a
when you have
red
to sit.
tape in the process of getting
Yeah,
getting things tested. You
yeah,
know, the, mhm, mm, yeah, I what I really appreciate you saying is that identifying the candidate of them needing to be
yeah,
in shape. Now, I'm gonna go out here and say, as also a coach and
yeah,
trainer, is that don't think you're gonna take your GLP, for your 3-4 months. You go see Coach Cole and say, like, I'm in shape, give me my
yeah,
peptides. That
yeah.
is not what we're talking about.
No,
do,
no,
do not do that.
it's I'm going to teach you habits. I'm going to teach you how to work out,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to do this for a few months on end, and then maybe you get to add that stuff in because again, it's going to be synergistic with the lifestyle. You have to create this lifestyle, and that's where it's like I was seeing all these coaches that are saying like, it's like you shouldn't take if you do this and this. And I was like, okay, well, my stuff is there. I do the same thing day in and day out. The amount of time I'm in the gym is more than probably most people
Yeah.
in what I do and how I learn things. It's more of like, okay, how can I make everything I'm doing in the gym better? Well, the peptide helps, but it's only because of all the other stuff I'm doing. I'm
Right.
getting 8 hours of sleep. I'm going to bed, no later than 10, and I'm waking up when I wake up.
Yeah.
Um, the earlier you go to bed before 12, the better sleep and all that other stuff in recovery. I'm eating whole foods. I'm eating all this and that. Like I'm doing things. I'm not drinking. I'm staying hydrated. I'm doing all the basics things that you need to be doing before you even think about this stuff. Because if you're not doing the basics, it's just like the best example I've found is when you can take someone who wins the lottery, what's their stats of actually having that money 10 years down the road? Most of them don't have it because they don't know how to save. They don't know how
Right.
to invest that money properly. And they're just, spit it on hookers and blow. And you know what? It's the same thing with the fitness stuff.
Yeah, and that's and as coaches, I'm going to speak on behalf of
Hmm.
myself and you and
Yeah.
all the other trainers, is that's kind of our uphill battle a little bit,
Yeah.
right? If not a
Hmm.
little bit, I mean, that is kind of, if you're a new client, you come on to you come to us and we're going to give you, these plans and protocols and whatnot, and you're not used to it. But in order to achieve the ultimate goal for the client, you need to you've got to be able to establish these routines to be able to hit these markers
Yeah.
and the longevity of it. And then, ideally, if you want to go
Yeah.
test on peptides, then now you're in better
Yeah.
position to do it. And I'm going to add an element in here. And again, been talking about this ad nauseum.
Hmm.
I think one of the hardest parts for clients, especially when they start out, is it can be overwhelming. I get it. If,
Hmm.
we come out with like, okay, you're going to see us two to three times a week in the gym.
Hmm.
We're going to lift heavy things. But in the meantime, just as you mentioned, Cole, we need you to dial in your sleep. We're going to need your protein levels to go up. Your water, your fiber, all this stuff needs to start being incorporated. And that is
Hmm.
overwhelming. I totally can
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
What I'm starting to learn and begin to learn is that, and I also pull a little bit of this out of Atomic Habits. So if you're a new
Hmm.
client
Hmm.
or you are a training client, I would highly recommend that you read Atomic Habits. But it's about the identity of who you take on, because the story that we tell ourselves before we go to see a trainer or coach is that we have our old self, our old story that's telling us, I can't
Yes.
do this, or that's too much. And then that's when it becomes overwhelming. But I believe when the story starts shifting and the belief starts shifting of the identity of, I am a healthy person, I now do this, right? So
Hmm.
your identity needs to precede your activity.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things I'm hoping that, audience members, you guys will be able to take that and be able to apply that. And especially if, you're one of Cole's clients or one of my clients. All right, Cole. So what I want to do, I want to ask one last question in regards to peptides
Yep.
or GLPs.
Yeah.
And this question touches on a little bit how I started the conversation. And feel free to be as honest as you want with this question.
Hmm.
So, with the introduction of peptides and GLPs now into the marketplace and now into the health and fitness space and wellness,
Hmm.
I have for lack of better terminology, going to call it a concern, in that we are now no longer learning how to delay gratification. We're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
learning how the process of grit, the process
Hmm.
of resiliency, and I think it's now becoming I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, but it's almost becoming a lost art
Yes.
in order to do that, because we're like, oh well, if I can just take a pill or if I can just do a peptide, now
Hmm.
it's almost, now we're looking at shortcuts.
Yeah.
So how would you like? What are your thoughts on that?
Mm. Yeah. So if we all look, do you remember that study where they're like, oh yeah, we studied if, someone takes testosterone and they sit on the couch and blah, 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 and they put on X amount of muscle
I
faster than someone who's,
I do remember
eh,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So how that study is looked at, they're looking at like the first part of when you actually start injecting with non-trained people to people who have been training and right. Well, if you look past that initial phase, the people who are actually injecting and lifting over surpass those people who are just sitting on their asses. So anytime you start anything, right, the initial part is going to do this, but it's the people that know how to work and do this thing,
Hmm.
they're going to get 10 times better results. So, and then for me, the reason I got on GLP, again, it wasn't because I didn't want to do the work. I've done the work. I went from 292 down to 226 in 6 months when I did my bodybuilding show. Also, probably the reason why I put the weight back on, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But so for this time, I lost 55 pounds in 3.5 months, and it was the easiest cut I've ever had to do in my life.
Hmm.
But it's because I know what to do now and how to, like, okay, do I push? Do I pull back? And it's because I learned the art of the fat loss versus like the science. Because there'd be weeks where I was like, I should not be losing this much weight. Because it's not like, yes, I'm in a deficit, but I'm not that much of a deficit. And people need to learn how to work. Otherwise, the thing that you're using is not going to be as efficient,
Hmm.
right? And my thought, in my opinion, this is everything. This was like when you do TRT, this is anything. You want to be able to get in, do the dang thing, do it hard for, 2, 3, 4 months and get out and recover and let the body, get back into normal and get happy. And that's how you're going to get better results, um, just better overall. And it's people are, and I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I did this thing, and I lost this weight. And I'm like, I think statistically, fat loss failure, like so recidivism rate for normal people is like 95+%
Hmm.
after X amount of years. Um, then with the GLPs, it's still 60% after 1.7 years to
Wow.
gain all the weight back.
Wow.
And that's just GLP ones. So we don't have data on the other ones, but
Right.
it's because people don't learn the habits. They're like, oh, I can just eat whatever, and lose weight. And I'm like, no, you cannot eat whatever and just lose weight. It still comes down to calories in versus calories out, and then you have to add the hormones and all the other junk that people forget. But
Yeah.
it still comes down to calories in and calories out. And that's as a coach, that's why I teach my people. That's where like I've had clients that would be good candidates for GLPs, but I don't talk about it with them until I'm like, okay, you've been with me a year or 2 years, you understand what fat loss is. If you need this, we can use a tool and all this other stuff. So it's one of those people need to earn the things that they want to do versus just like giving it to them, right?
Right.
Like I'm not going to introduce pre-workout to someone who just needs to drink plain water before workout, you know, or someone who's not getting enough sleep, you know, that's maybe why they shouldn't be having caffeines because there's so many variables. But it's one of
Right.
those you need to earn the things you want to do by actually learning how to do the things, right? Like um training wheels. That's what I'm looking at. Most people at the gym are stuck on training wheels because they can't go out and do the things on their own because they haven't allowed themselves to grow yet.
Yeah. That's
You
fair.
know, yeah. I've had so many people who are like, "Oh, I'm done training because I know what to do," and then I'm like, "Okay," and I'll tell them it's probably not a good idea. You still got, probably a month or two before you're ready habit wise that you show me that you can go on your own. Well, they go off and they come back and they put all the weight on, and then that's me as a coach. I'm like, I feel bad because my job is to make sure you don't put the weight back on and give you
Right.
those tools. But if you're not with me long enough, you're not going to understand all those tools, right? Because you're only me for a month. You're like, well, I lost 10 pounds. Cool. Well, you didn't learn the other stuff that comes with keeping it off
Yeah.
because you have different modalities we have to go through in phases to teach people how to do that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. Um, and again, I'm going to say this. I know some clients have heard this. Audience members, I don't think I've ever. Most of the time, Renegade Radio, I don't actually do fitness stuff.
Mhm.
So this may actually be the first time that we've had a fitness talk on the show.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to reiterate it in just renegade terminology, in the fact
Yeah.
that the world is going to tell us, look for the shortcut and to just do what society and culture is doing. And yet, just as Cole was describing, and as renegades we adhere to, in the fact that it isn't the conformity to what the world is telling us to do. It's in the process and in the hard work. It's in the grind. It's in the daily habits that we need to form, that gets us to ultimately to, whatever goal that we're looking at. Um, and so this, and again, it comes from a biblical principle from Romans
Yes.
12:2, is that the conformity is what gets us into trouble. But in order for us to get to where we want to be, it's the renewing of the mind. And so for those of you who don't necessarily follow the or adhere to the Christian worldview, in a more secular approach, or a secular wording would probably just be, don't go with the flow, and pay attention to why you're thinking certain things, and then you'll have to renew the way that you think.
Hmm.
um, because that's what is ultimately going to get us to what we're ultimately looking for. Cole, what I want to do is, I want to go ahead and start closing out, because this is
Yeah.
Easter weekend,
Yep.
and so I've kind of
It
already
is
made a
risen.
little bit of the segue of, talking about the Bible. So
Yep.
we're gonna go ahead and kind of transition that way
Yep.
to right now. So I want to know about your connection. So you become a trainer. And again, if you haven't listened to the first part of the interview,
Yeah.
you could have another coming to Jesus moment, essentially, in 2014, if I remember that part right. Um, how has faith and fitness intersected for you since you become a trainer? And how is it
Yeah.
impacting, and how are you infused that with what you do on a daily basis now?
Yeah. I started. I'm in a ministry now too. It's called Tent Makers. I will send over the link if any fellas want to join my online group. I can also send a link where women can join too. It just will be with women uh, mentors. And basically, I just share my testimony with people, and I talk to them about Jesus in certain ways, and I share principles and values. And I just meet with people, one on one or in groups, and we just kind of talk about how, if we're Christians, we are supposed to live life of excellence. And if you're not living a life of excellence, you're not living in a body that is, quote unquote, a temple. It's not healthy. It's out of shape. And we have a lot of dudes in this world that, profess that they're Christians and they're man's man and they're fat and they got boobs and, their testosterone's, 200, and it's because they're lazy and they don't want to do work, and,
Yeah.
they let whole topic for another day type thing. So, but yeah. So basically, my goal for like my business is to help raise men up into manhood and to be leaders in their household and in their lives.
Man, I love it. I love it. Cool. I think that's actually a really good
Yeah.
place to actually end the show. Again, I'll have the link. I believe the Tent Makers link is also in the first interview show notes, and
Yep.
I will also have it again in the show notes here. Something that I didn't mention in the first, I should have mentioned in the first part, but I did put it into the show notes. Guys, Coach Cole's story is not unique in the fact that there are millions of other men and women who are struggling mentally. And so please
Hmm.
talk with someone, especially if self harm is involved. And I put a
Hmm.
link, I'm sorry, I put a number down at the end of the first interview. Yeah, the first interview. So if you need to talk to someone, it's a really quick number. I think it's 988 is the number that you can call or text. And then I'll also have the same information at the bottom of this, in the show notes of this episode as well. Cole, thank you so much for joining us for part two. Thank you for sharing your just
Yeah.
in-depth knowledge of training and of peptides and everything that you've done, man. I definitely
Uh,
appreciate you being on the show.
yeah. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Well, hopefully you have a happy Easter, brother, and
Yeah.
I
You too,
know
man.
Appreciate it. All right,
Yep.
Renegades. This is Coach Steve, as always, saying never conform.